Welcome back to the program. Glad to have you on board. I'll be glad to get back to your phone calls and your emails at 866-HEY-LARS. That's 866-439-5277. You can vote in our Twitter poll at Lars Larson Show. And if you have an Alexa device, just tell Alexa to play the Lars Larson Show. It's kind of amazing technology. There is a question, though, about America's trade with China. I almost said Taiwan, but I meant China. China has been antithetical to the U.S. best interest for a good long time. They are growing more so as they grow bigger, and they are becoming economically more powerful, militarily more powerful, and it doesn't seem to have tempered their approach to things. They want to be number one, even if they have to steal it or cheat to get there. So the question is whether or not America should stop all trade with the big Chinese electronics giant or telecom giant, Huawei. Frank Gaffney joins me now, founder and president of the Center for Security Policy in Washington, D.C. Frank, welcome back.
Lars, it's great to be with you.
So tell me about this. The president had the big handshake with Kim Jong-un, as you mentioned, in the DMZ yesterday, but he also made a commitment to communist China, and that was we're going to have continued sales of U.S. equipment to Huawei, which is, well, you and I have talked about it before. It's viewed as a company largely controlled, if not completely controlled, by the Chinese government and an arm of the Chinese government that wants to reach into the United States and the rest of the world and perhaps spy and perhaps simply, be the go-to when it comes to 5G technology with real security implications for our country, isn't there?
There are huge security implications, Lars, and I think what's happened in the space of the past year is that a lot of Americans, including a lot of people in official Washington, have come to grips with the full import of what the Communist Chinese and this enterprise, I think of it as sort of the Chinese Communist Party doing business as Huawei, are up to, and they've frankly stolen the march on us. The advantages of having a sort of fascistic system in which the government can say, go do this, and pour infinite amounts of money into subsidizing an enterprise, as opposed to a free market system in which companies have to put their own money forward, is that the Chinese have now got the pole position, if you might put it that way, on selling 5G, fifth-generation wireless technology and networks to not just developing nations around the world, but even to a number of our allies. And you mentioned spying. Spying is only part of it, Lars. What this puts them in a position to do, the Chinese Communist Party, is essentially vacuum clean the kind of data that would be coursing through those communication systems, private, personal information, health information, intellectual property, state secrets for that matter, including militarily sensitive ones, intelligence of allies of ours. And the result of sort of a year of learning about this has been, I think, now pretty much a bipartisan consensus that we shouldn't be doing anything to help enable Huawei to be more competitive, more, decisively advantaged in the world's telecommunications markets. And that's what I think President Trump is going to bump up against here, having made this commitment to Xi Jinping to continue selling some American technology to help Huawei. An awful lot of people on both sides of the aisle, I think probably even a veto-proof majority in Congress, is going to say, no, I don't think so. That's really not a good idea, not in the national interest.
Well, Frank, this is a president who, at least in what he says, not necessarily what he does, has been very much aligned against China, saying he views them as an economic threat, that they steal our technology. So why do you suppose he saw this as one of those chips he could afford to give up? And he must understand the implications. I think he understands. I mean, he's got advisors around him who would say, that's not such a great idea, and here's why, if he doesn't understand it already. And I really thought he did understand China as a real threat to the United States in a whole bunch of different ways, militarily and economically. Why would we want us to continue supplying them when in fact Huawei, on behalf of the Chinese government, is going to be working against our interests, right?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the answer is sort of twofold. One is I believe that American companies who want to sell this stuff to Huawei have come and basically pleaded with him to have the authority to do that, get the waivers, continue doing business with Huawei. And he's sensitive to that. He said as much, in his press conference the other day. The other thing, though, is I think that the Chinese demanded that he make this set of waivers in order to get the trade talks restarted. This wasn't like last year when another Chinese telecommunications conglomerate, ZTE, you may remember, was on the rocks because we caught them out doing some bad stuff, including selling their wireless and other technology to Iran in violation of sanctions. The president, as a personal favor to Xi, let them off the hook. And I think a lot of us thought that was a mistake at the time. It still is, really. But this time was different, Lars. This time they not only asked for a personal favor from Xi Jinping, the Chinese leader, but they demanded that the United States make this concession. I think this is, on that count among others, the wrong move. And I think the good news is the president has said Huawei constitutes a foreign adversary of this country, and its activities, its businesses, its operations are a national emergency. And the caveat that he put on whether he was going to let this stuff go or not, these technologies, was nothing that would constitute a national emergency. I think this does, and he shouldn't go forward with it.
Well, see, and that's a concern because, I mean, if there's anybody who understands the value of bargaining chips, it's got to be Donald Trump. He didn't get from, whatever he inherited from his dad, no matter what the number was, to several $billion and then lose it largely in the late 80s, early 90s, and then make it again by being a dummy about what things are worth. But what did he get in exchange for handing them this fairly major chip?
What he says he's gotten so far is a commitment from the Chinese to buy a lot more agricultural products and to resume the trade negotiations. Now, on the agricultural products, Lars, the Chinese have a serious problem. It's called, by some, pig Ebola, an African swine fever that is cut by some estimates 40, maybe even 50% of the actual population of pigs in China, which is a major staple for the Chinese food supply. They also have something called the fall armyworm that is apparently eating up a lot of their cereal grains, too. So they're in the market for some more agricultural products from us. I'm not sure that he had to give anything to get that, but I think that was kind of the quid pro quo, and the hope that he's going to get the kind of trade deal he wants from the Chinese. I must tell you, I'm skeptical. I don't think they will make a good deal, and if they do make a good deal, they won't honor it. That's the nature of the Chinese Communist Party, and we've got to be clear-eyed about it. We've got a terrific resource for your listeners if you'd like. PresentDangerChina.org has got a wealth of information, including a lot of videos from the Committee on the Present Danger China, and it's really high time we all get to school on what the Chinese are up to.
Well, Frank, I got to tell you, I've always promised my listeners, I said I advocated for Donald Trump, but when I disagree with him, I will say so. I think in this case, this was not a smart move. That it may have been what they demanded to get the trade talks going again. So the Chinese clearly understand how important it is. And if Donald Trump didn't or made the deal because he wanted to see some movement on that deal, then that's not in the best interest of Americans. And I'll say so right here. Frank Gaffney is the founder and president of the Center for Security Policy